with the Kango hats, and the Cats is back, man. And I'm here to actually break down the Death of Some Shady album, man, and its concept. So I know a lot of people online and a lot of people just, been trying to let this album simmer a little bit because it's only been a week. We've been a week out from this album, and I ain't gonna lie, I've been bumping this joint every day, nonstop. Like, this is giving me the Eminem show vibes and energy. I'm just really loving this album like a lot, man. So in today's episode, man, I'm not gonna waste too much time just, drooling over this album and everything and just loving it so much. But, I'm just gonna quickly hop in over giving an overview of this album, man. But before I do that, man, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully you take this ride with me, and hopefully you guys appreciate how I viewed the concept of this album, because I think it's actually a pretty accurate view of how this album was supposed to have gone. I know a lot of people were saying listening to it backwards and play it in reverse or whatever. It's like, I'm not really believing that because of just how things went. So getting into this, man, I would go in saying, if you're listening to this album, dog, like, you have to take an hour out of your day and listen to it straight through. Like, you can't just mindlessly listen to it. You can't just like tune yourself in and out if you're trying to understand the concept. Now, if you're just trying to listen to some M and you just want to enjoy an album or a couple of records, and all right, that's a different approach to it. But if you're trying to actually understand the concept and do this, you have to do that. But this album, man, I feel like people weren't trying to do that, which is rather strange, because you're not gonna get it if you don't do that, man. Also, I feel like the skits, they were a big part of this album. Like, without understanding or listening to the entire, because there were skits within the songs too. So without really listening to these skits to go into what's going on into the next track or just the overall piece of the album, you're gonna miss it. So you have to kind of pay attention. It's definitely a sit back and relax and really listen to it, man. And this concept definitely left a lot of speculation and just a lot of, chatter about what the album possibly could have been, what it meant, and everything, which is great for the album, which is another reason on why the album's so great, in my opinion. Like, it's up there with one of like his greatest albums for sure. Also, I would say this is probably, of all M's albums, especially in recent time, like, he's had a lot of skippable tracks, and in this regard, I feel like this was probably like a 2 to 4 track skip minimum. Like, you couldn't skip that much, you know what I mean? And I appreciated that of the album, you know what I mean? So I'm with that one. Also, my man had the best 6-track run I think I've ever heard to start off an album. Like, I will say, I know I didn't like Brand New Dance at first, which I feel like is a part of that 6-track run, but like, I actually like it a little bit more than like Houdini and stuff. So, that 6-track run like really gave me a feel of like what the album was about to be. So I give it an A on that. There was a bunch of ton of hidden gems in the album for sure. Like, in my opinion, I think he was following a horror theme. You know what I'm saying? Hence my shirt that I'm wearing today. But we'll get into that a little bit further. I'm just trying to give like an overview of like this album, just some key points, and just real quick. And the star feature on the album was definitely the kid JID, or what some would say is Jid, whichever one it is, man. Like, I bang with him, man. Like, he's dope, bro. And my 5 tracks on that song, or that album, would be Fuel, Bad One, Head Honcho, Guilty Conscious 2. And I'm pushing Evil in there, but I also feel like Lucifer could be there too. Like, I'm flipped between those two. But those are like my 5 like tracks in the song and shit. And there's been a lot of people chattering and talking in regards to like if you can listen to Eminem in the hood and all that shit like that. Now, I'm from around the way, man. Like, I'm not a hood dude, but I'm from around the way, and I know people that definitely listen to Slim, dog. So I don't believe in that narrative, man. I believe, you know, Math Hoffa's dudes was on their podcast talking about that, and I respect their opinion and shit. And I think the dude that was in the black shirt, I posted this video also earlier. If you want to go take a look at that, they were discussing who won the beef, and just, you know, they also brought up the fact that M can't be played in the hood, and just was questioning a lot of things about M. So here we are today reviewing the album in regards. So, you know, I definitely was rocking with that album, and I'm riding around the way listening to that. There's not a lot of M albums that I'm doing that to, but this is definitely one of them. You know what I'm saying? And as far as like the features overall and the production, I'm gonna have to give an A for the features because it's put me on a new artist such as like Easy Mill, um, Baby Tron. I know I called him something else in my earlier videos, but I know it now. And JID. And also, you know, Jelly Roll, like he also had a good little feature on there too, man. And I think White Gold too, as far as like how he is in hooks. 'Cause I like hooks when it comes to music too, because that's what ties in the music and everything. So I'm definitely all about that. So I was here for his features, and then his production, I give it a B plus. Now I didn't do too much digging on like who was behind each track, but I know Dre was on a couple. But me as like a vintage M fan, I definitely wanted some more Dre production on there, but I'm okay with it not being there because he still gave us some bops and some bangers and some slappers. So I was cool with that. Um, Now, if I had to compare this album to M's previous projects, I've seen a lot of people out there saying a lot of albums, but they failed to miss this one for some reason. I feel like this had a lot of the Eminem show energy behind it, just based off like the sequence of the track list, just the energy of each track and like where it went. And at some point, I think I'm gonna do a video about which one was better between these two, because I have this pretty high up there in Eminem's all-time ranking. So, you know, if you're watching now, please share, like, and subscribe, and, you know, stay tuned for that video. But I do feel like these albums are definitely in comparison, and like, you know, with the death of some Shady, I feel like his energy matched the Eminem show, and his song. And sorry about that. The Eminem show is also gonna age. It also aged well. And the death of some Shady, we're living a recency bias here a little bit. So it's like I love his pen. It's sharper. You know what I mean? His lyrics are more on point. He knows how to kind of like do a whole story throughout this album, which I'm gonna get into about the whole concept of this album and everything. And you know, the Eminem show was a different time period where he was just more hungry. He had something to prove, and he had Dre on the production, you know, so that's just kind of what makes the difference between those two. But I was here for all of those regardless. I still got the album up there. It's definitely a masterpiece in my opinion. With that being said, man, with some of the hidden gems that I mentioned, man, I would like to say that Diddy got a couple of tracks for him, man. I think I did a 3 count on that, man. So, you know, I think he got Bad One, he got a nice couple of bars. Few, he got destroyed, and he definitely got in the Antichrist where he even had to censor a line. So he got the brunt end of a lot of this shit in the album. And then surprisingly, Will Smith got a 2 count in there. I mean, there was other people that was mentioned, but the people that stood out to me the most, because Diddy, obviously, because of MGK beef, and Will Smith, which I don't quite understand, because I thought it was just Will Smith don't got a cuss on his raster by records. Well, I do, so F him and F you too. I thought it was just that, but I guess it's something deeper than that, because I see he's still coming. So I'm curious to know where that's coming from. But let's get into the concept of this album, which is my favorite part of this whole, you know, release of his project. Now, I wasn't happy at first when he came out Houdini, and then he was just chilling on that for a couple of weeks. But he ended up dropping Toby, which was great. Like, once I heard Toby, I was like, this is about to be it. Like, I texted my boys in the chat and everything. I'm like, when this album dropped, this shit's about to be tough. Like, I just feel it. And I called it the Eminem Show Part 2. It might as well be that, minus the concept. 'Cause I feel like the Eminem Show had a concept, but I haven't listened to that just straight through on a like, let me hear what he's like trying to talk about, which I feel like, if I remember, it's more or less about like leaving Hollywood and shit. But I might get into that soon too. But that's for the M fans out there. If y'all for it, let me know. Comment in here. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. But once again, the concept of this album, which I feel like was definitely missed throughout the whole week of this album being out there. Now, I love everybody loving the album and everything, but I feel like you're missing the point here. Like, My man M, let me start by saying this. This dude is a genius. You know, he's a big comic book nerd. He's a big horror buff. And I'm a horror buff myself. So that's why I feel like during this breakdown, if you're still here, dog, like just stay tuned because I'm really about to blow your mind with this breakdown and shit. Because I don't think this is happening. I stayed offline for a little bit because I really want this to be like free thought and like my assessment without any influence right now. So this is just, you heard it first. Like this is raw right now. But let's start with this, man. The concept definitely plays into like the Friday the 13th Jason horror movie, you know what I'm saying, where there's a specific one, I forgot which installment it is, but it's called like Jason Lives, you know what I'm saying? And I believe that he's flipping it into, you know, the death of some Shady where, you know, basically Jason can't die. So I feel like he's basically just saying like Slim Shady can't be killed, but we about to take you on this journey and, you know, we about to put you through this concept album where at the end of the day, we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to lyrically explain it to you. We're going to illustrate these things here on four. And I believe that started within track one. You know what I'm saying? Now, I also feel like the tracks kind of draw a different picture, you know what I'm saying, in regards to like what's going on in his head, his dreams, or in real life. Like, however the listener wants to interpret this, it's just to play off of the death of Slim Shady shit. So, you know, that's just my opinion on it. Going back to the skits, you know what I'm saying? Like there was a few skits, you know what I mean? But I feel like the Renaissance track that started off at first was more or less kind of like him writing this movie for us, you know what I'm saying? And like giving us a lyrical exercise on the battle that's about to begin. Which I think that's what I got out of the intro. Then it goes into like habits, which is like the skids at the beginning, and it's pretty basically like a conversation between Eminem and Slim in the basement, which goes back to the basement trailer, forcing him to take a pill or him to split it, which, you know, obviously it seems like I think they both took it. He forced it down his throat or whatever. That's just my opinion. And then that's what leads into like the split personalities, that part of the album that goes into, I believe, what songs were those? Yeah, Habits and Trouble. Sorry, it was Habits and Trouble that I went into. So once Habits and Trouble was that was the split personality between Slim and M, which at the end of all those songs was Slim Shady taking over. Now we get into, you know, Brand New Dance, which was, a lot of people didn't really like it, but I feel like, and I believe you mentioned this later on in the album, which we'll get to that point too. Actually, no, we'll just say right now because we're just breaking it down. But I believe in Guilty Conscience too, he mentioned that this song specifically may have been off of the Encore album, which it really does sound like that. Like even when I first heard it, I'm like, this don't sound like a current. This sounds like a throwaway, just a little bit more enhanced and just a little bit more on point. Which I was cool with, you know what I'm saying? And I was for that 100%. But I liked it, and the thing is, I liked it better than Houdini. So I was cool with that. Now going into the All You Got skit, that was basically a play on Eminem or Slim Shady telling Eminem that like, I got you tied up, and no matter how much you try to shoot me, and he's played on this in many of his albums prior, like My Darling, he's done this on a song like that, and I believe there's a couple other songs that I can't remember off the top of my head where he's kind of played into this, I want to kill off the Slim Shady alter ego. But at this point, we have Slim still tied up in the Eminem still tied up in the basement, and he's basically letting them know, like, you can't outthink me, you can't do anything, I'm all you got. And that's basically also playing on the only reason why you're famous or you're popping is because of Slim Shady. It's not because of Marshall. It's not because of Eminem. It's because of me. And at this point, that's where you kind of like, you know, take that break and the whole story arc of Slim Shady versus Eminem, which I believe ultimately ends in Slim Shady dying. So then, as this is following the Friday 13th theme or, you know, a movie script, I believe there's an intermission, which now you just get fuel which is that track with JID, which is the shots at Diddy, the crazy lyrics, the bar work is insane, high level rap, everything. So I believe that's where you get that. And once again, I said earlier, like I highlight JID because I'm really banging with his music right now. As soon as I heard him, I was like, I gotta know who this is because he's rapping. Like he's not just another guy on the track. Like he's actually like holding up M to a point where you're like, I think he out rapped M. Which if you really bust down M's joints, it's not really close. Like homie can rap, but how M's just spinning stuff and saying what he's saying, it was insane. Like, and that's not even about the essays bar and he didn't leave out a P Diddy. It's not even about that. It's about the stuff after that. Got the most content on the continent and all that stuff. Like, you know, nobody 16s are touching these index and like all that. Like the way he was flowing, all of that after that was crazy. So, you know, you get into that, and which was a great song, which, you know, was the grand finale of everything. But now you get back into, oh, sorry, my bad. We're also skipping a couple of tracks, which I skipped this song myself a bunch of times, man. So as soon as you get that track, you know what I'm saying, you get into the weakest song in the album, dog, which is, you know, Road Rage, which the song's terrible, but it also, and you have to listen because I skip it now because I get the story. But in the middle of this song, it's pretty much another moment where Slim Shady and Eminem are going back and forth with each other. And at this point, it sounds like it's more like M's just having a battle with himself in his head. But that's to the listener's discretion to figure that out. But at this point in the song, in the middle of it, he's basically just like dyeing his hair blonde. The alter ego is like, it sounds like he's slapping himself, but Slim is slapping Eminem. And now he's forcing him to like go on this whole Slim Shady disrespectful move. So that's what happens at that point. Song was really whack, but the highlight of that song was when he got into the juvenile, like, you know, mocking of his song from back in the day. Oh, you don't want to do this, huh? You want me to slow down, huh? Like, that was funny as hell because Slim Eminem has always been good at like mocking dudes and just kind of making fun of them in the way that he does. Like, that's kind of something that's always been my favorite thing about him. Like, he's been on mixtapes doing that. Like, he used to mock Dre, he used to mock 50. Like, if I can find those, man, I'll definitely post these on here, man, and y'all can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, now after all that, man, after all that, we get into like another, I believe, intermission, man, where I believe Slim was once again in the basement, and while he's in the basement, he has, I believe it's the breaking news skit. Yeah, so once you get into the breaking news skit, you have Eminem being shown basically what Slim has done, in my opinion, which is also himself, like, you know, this alter ego battle. And he's like, here, watch this. And you hear the breaking news skit, which is ultimately tying in the entire concept of the album, which I feel like the concept ends at, I believe that's track 13. If you're watching, correct me if I'm wrong. But I also feel like I definitely feel like it's 13. So Guilty Conscience 2, which is essentially the track where the story gets tied in. This is probably one of the better songs on this album, just because of how he illustrated the words and how he pieced everything together in the end. And if you were listening like he wanted you to, you were seeing that Eminem was slowly getting ready to release himself, and that's kind of what was depicted at the end of this song. So once that battle happened, and I call it a battle, but you know, you can call it, you know, a dream, a nightmare, whatever you want to say. But he wakes up from it and he has the call with Paul. And when he has the call with Paul Rosenberg, he's talking about, you know, I had this dream and all this blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, Paul hangs up and says, F you. But that now ties back into what he's originally trying to get at, which is playing off of the Friday the 13th theme, which was like, you know, Slim Shady is always going to be in his head and he's always going to come out and he's going to make these tracks that may piss you off or whatever. But he's kind of here to stay and he doesn't die. And I feel like that was the end of the concept piece of the album. And then at that point, we roll. I believe, what track did we roll into, man? Head Honcho, was it? Let me see, man. I keep forgetting I got the information right in front of me, but yeah. So we head into Head Honcho, which was another banger, man. It was another bop, and I feel like that song was slept on because Easy Mill, which I'm not familiar with myself, but I like how he raps. He came on with bars that nobody could understand. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Filipino. So I guess he was rapping in his native tongue. And people didn't like it because of that. But, you can't, people feel what they don't understand. But for me, when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know what dude's saying, but I'm like, I'm banging with this shit. So that was a banger for me. And I liked how he followed up with that. And then once he went into that, this is where I feel like I need to change the album up a little bit. And this was a good song. And we're gonna mash all of these songs into one as we're tying up the end of this album review. Temporary, first and foremost, whether or not you want to put it at the end or the beginning, needs to be pieced together with Somebody Save Me. If you've listened to Revival, he had the same approach on that album at the end where he had Castle and then Arose, which they were back to back. And I can't remember because I didn't like the album too much, but it was at the end and they were packaged together. Now, you can't hit me with Guilty Conscience, Head Honcho, Temporary, then Bad One, and Toby. I'm just not with that sequence. And this is me nitpicking, but I'm still a fan of the album. I still rank it pretty high, but I just didn't like that. I was so high up, but then it brought me so down with Temporary. And then Bad One brings me up. Toby keeps me up. And then you bring in Ken Kniff, which I was very appreciative of that being a vintage M fan. Ken Kniff was something that you haven't heard, I felt like, in some time. I feel like you might have heard it in a couple other albums, but nothing where like you can remember it. I feel like this is one of those ones that you kind of remember because it's a part of his his nostalgia. You know what I'm saying? It's a part of his classic hits. It's a part of the Slim Shady. Excuse me, folks. It's part of the Slim Shady LP. It's part of the Marshall Mathers. I believe it's a part of the Eminem show. And it's a part of this. Now, the other ones that I can't recall if they're in there or not, they may have been in there, but those are the classics. And if we're this hype about this and we know how this is a meaningful thing for people that really bang with Eminem. It doesn't mean much for the average listener, but if you're really a fan and you really dig deep, Ken Kniff mess on, but it's just the lineup didn't really make no sense to me. Like, I much rather would have had it in a different sequence. Now, as far as the Temporary and Somebody Save Me song goes, I also feel like he was playing off of something too. Now, if you're a fan or know of Castle and a Rose, you know what I'm talking about because both those songs have a weird play on just everything in terms of like his drug addiction, him dying, him being happy with his art, and him recovering. So in that first Castle, it's him basically just doing everything prior to him, kind of his drug addiction, but then he passes out in the bathroom, and then A Rose plays after, which is technically him being in the hospital bed. He always has these tie-ins of rapping about him almost dying or dying in these songs lately. So the next one's him being in the hospital, you hear the machines, and this is A Rose. And he basically, I believe, comes to life at the end of the song. These songs hit me differently than these two. Like, I like those songs way better than Temporary and Somebody Save Me. Now, the people that's on the hooks save these songs, but those other songs I definitely rock with, and they resonate with me a lot more differently than these two songs here. But I seen what he was doing here because in Temporary, which fell first on the track list, was him kind of prior. Sounds like he's lively, he's happy, whatever. And then the next one, which is Somebody Save Me, sounds like, in my opinion, once again, this is my opinion, sounds like this is him coming either out of, not rehab, because that's different, but fresh out of the hospital from this overdose from when he collapsed in the bathroom in A Rose. That's my opinion. Now, if you were to package that and you throw that at the end, this album's a fucking 10 out of 10. despite how we flowed on those 2 songs, whatever. This album is a 10 out of 10. But because it was packaged like that, and that's just for me. Now, fans love this song, but I personally don't because of the flow and the package that it was delivered to me in. Because of that, I'm gonna put this album at like I juggle, but it's gonna be an 8 and a 9 for sure. 8 and a 9. Whether or not it's better than the Eminem show, that is to be continued, man. That is TBD actually. That ain't to be continued. It's TBD right now. You know what I mean? Because the Eminem show has 20 years in the game, and this has only got a week in the game. But I'm having a feeling that this one is like, it's gonna get there. And me personally, off of first listen, already knew where I was putting this joint. So when I drop another video comparing these 2 albums and like how the track list lines up, trust me, y'all are gonna understand, especially M fans and Eminem fans, depending on how you want to call them. Y'all will get what I mean by this when I compare these albums. But I'm glad y'all stuck around. If y'all made it to this point, I hope y'all understand the concept of this album. Or if you didn't understand it, you understand it a little bit better. Maybe I gave you some jewels and some nuggets that you might have not have thought of. But this is what the channel is all about, man. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I might have exaggerated some shit, but as a fan, the lore continues. So I'm gonna leave on that note, man. I appreciate y'all staying here for this long. If y'all did, for anybody that's new, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back to y'all again with some more reactions, more reviews. This is actually my first album review, so I hope y'all stuck around for this, man. I'm out of here. Peace.
BCS1E33 killed the beat.